Okay, so we're about to look at one of the most famous stories ever told, but maybe through a lens you've never considered before. It's a theological idea called the naked bondage, and honestly, it might just change how you see this entire familiar story. It all kicks off with this one pivotal line from Genesis. Adam and Eve eat the forbidden fruit, their eyes are opened, and the very first thing they notice is they're naked. Now, what if that nakedness is about way more than just not having clothes on? That's the powerful question at the very heart of what we're digging into today. I mean, really, what if this wasn't just about a sudden feeling of physical modesty? The sermon we're exploring suggests this moment points to something much, much deeper, a metaphorical nakedness that reveals a huge shift in the entire human condition. According to this interpretation, that moment of realization wasn't some step into freedom or enlightenment, not at all. In fact, it was the very beginning of a hidden, invisible bondage, a whole set of constraints that would go on to shape human experience from that point on. This quote really just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The idea is that so often we go through life totally unaware of what's actually holding us back. We feel free, but these invisible chains are there, kind of pulling the strings until a light gets shown on them. It suggests we might be living with limitations we don't even recognize. So what exactly is this naked bondage? Well, according to our source material, it's not just one thing, but three interconnected chains. And these aren't physical, of course, they're powerful internal forces. So let's break them down. We're going to explore these three areas: the bondage of the mind, the bondage of the heart, and finally, the bondage of the spirit. And we'll start with the one that began with just a single deceptive thought. First up is the bondage of the mind. So the sermon highlights how the serpent, the most clever of creatures, didn't use force. It used a simple suggestion. It just planted a little seed of doubt, a thought that questioned reality. And that one single thought was enough to lead to action. This is where our vulnerability to deception begins, right inside our own minds. And here's how this all connects back to being naked. The argument is that we're now in this constant search for knowledge and information to kind of clothe ourselves, to cover up this deep-seated fear of feeling ignorant or exposed. I mean, think about how that plays out today. The pressure to always have the answer, to never admit, you know what, I don't know. Okay, next, let's move from the intellectual to the emotional. This is the bondage of the heart. Now, this chain is all about our personal history. The baggage we carry around that can feel surprisingly heavy every single day. The source explains that painful past experiences can literally forge emotional chains that hold us captive, long, long after the actual events are over. To make this totally concrete, the speaker shared a personal story. As a kid, he was stung by a wasp near a bridge. And he said that for years, even after he knew for a fact the nest was gone, every time he walked past that spot, he would feel this primal fear. The experience was over, but the chain was still there. And we can probably all relate to this in some way, right? It's that fear of failure after one past mistake. It's that deep-seated anxiety that crops up in certain situations. It's the inability to trust someone new after you've been betrayed, or just carrying bitterness and unforgiveness. These are the chains of the heart in action. And that brings us to the third and, according to this sermon, the most foundational chain of all. This one is the bondage of the spirit, and this gets to the core of the whole theological argument. It's described as a state of separation from God, where a person is basically a slave to their own destructive impulses, rather than a friend of the divine. So if these are the three chains, what's the key to breaking them? Well, this next section contrasts two very different responses to this whole nakedness problem: the human attempt and what the sermon calls the divine provision. So, Adam and Eve's solution? They grabbed some fig leaves. It was a self-made, temporary fix that really only hid the problem. But in contrast, God's provision was garments of animal skin. They were durable, they were lasting, but they came at a cost. And this is a huge theological point. For those durable garments to be made, an animal had to die. A sacrifice was required. And in this framework, sacrifice isn't just about loss, it's about a substitute paying a price that was owed. This moment is used to foreshadow a much larger idea, that truly covering the spiritual nakedness requires a really significant substitutionary sacrifice. This brings us to the sermon's ultimate conclusion. If fig leaves and animal skins are just temporary fixes for a really deep internal problem, what in the world is the permanent solution?
The final answer isn't about covering up the outside, but about fundamentally changing the inside to break those chains of the mind, heart, and spirit. The sermon argues the ultimate covering is metaphorical. It's about adopting a completely new nature.
So how does this transformation happen? The source argues it's not about just following a set of rules. That's just weaving more fig leaves. Instead, it's a deep internal change of the heart, mind, and spirit. And from that inner change, a new way of living just naturally flows out. And this is really the final takeaway. The freedom from this naked bondage isn't achieved by trying harder or doing better things. According to this sermon, it comes from a transformation of identity, from becoming someone new, from the inside out. So, as we close out this explainer, the source material leaves us with a question to reflect on. Whether it's in our minds, our hearts, or our spirits, what invisible chains might be holding us back without us even realizing it?